Hey guys, Liana here. Sorry for the informal appearance. I would have gussied myself up better, but it is really hot and humid in Toronto today. And it's even worse in the subway. And of course, Momo's here. Hello, Momo. And this is my fourth crack at making this video due to technical difficulties. Hello, Momo. This is the only one with Momo in it, though, so maybe it was meant to be. Should we get closer to... Let's move the camera to take in Momo. There we go. There's Momo. And I apologize for the grotesque amount of headroom. I'm doing this myself. But I wanted to make this video because something cool happened to me today. You'll notice my shirt, maybe, around Momo. It's Chaos from Skylanders. It says it's a trap because of Trap Team. Get it? Star Wars? Yes, always cool. And I had my Skylanders bag, which is around here somewhere now. I had it when I was going to do this video before, but I had technical difficulties. This camera powers down when somebody's not actively moving it to try to save the battery. And that sucks when I'm trying to do it on myself on a little tabletop tripod. So anyway, I was walking down the street and I hear somebody behind me go, "Oh, she's got the bag too. She's got the shirt and the bag." And I'm like, that might not be talking about me. I just got the feeling they were talking about me. And I turned around and it was a woman with her son. Son was about 8 to 10 years old. And I said, "Are you talking about Skylanders?" And yeah, of course they were. And I said, "Yeah, I'm just coming from an event. There's a new game coming out September 20th. And the boy's eyes went, wide as saucers. And I said, "Yeah, it's got all these vehicles and stuff in it, like helicopters and submarines and race cars and even bigger, excited Skylanders." Yeah. And I said, "Who's your favorite Skylander?" And he said, the elf girl that does the ch-ch-ch. I don't know her name, but I like her. And he was talking about Stealth Elf, who is one of the new supercharged characters. Lucky for that kid. None of my favorite Skylanders ever end up carrying forward because I like the monster ones, the goofy, silly Skylanders. But it was that moment of people either go, "Oh, that's weird," because he liked a girl character. Someone would go, "Oh, what great parenting, that kid was raised right." And I don't think it's either. I don't think kids of that age work that way. It was one of those moments where I didn't think he was telling me what I wanted to hear. Because, I'm obviously a Skylanders fan. And there's more male Skylanders characters than female Skylanders characters. So, a kid's not going to lie about their favorite Skylanders character to please an adult. Because Skylanders is a kid's thing that adults borrow. It's incredible that way. But, this is one of these things where it just hammered home again. And yes, it's just an anecdote. It's not scientific. But I am more and more I'm not calling myself a journalist because you can't really do on-the-ground journalism in games. Doing this sort of thing and covering an event. The Skylanders event, it was at the Trump Towers in Toronto. And that, to me, became the story. Like, what's Skylanders doing an event at the Trump Towers? Is it because Bowser and Donald Trump have the same hair? I don't know. I'm confused. But to me, it's like, okay, there's the story. Because if there's no story, if there's no narrative, then it's just promotion for the game. And that's not journalism. So the story for me became in part the reality of this being at the Trump Towers, the hotel portion of the Trump Towers. And that aside, that was sort of a digression, but, these anecdotes that I've collected as a pseudo-journalist, which is the best we can actually call ourselves with gaming being the way it is, I've heard these anecdotes again and again and again and again that defy the conventional narratives we're supposed to believe about what people like in games on both sides of the outrage wars, right? And it made me realize something. It crystallized something in my head that I want to share. Because I was like, yay, this is a big building block in what I want to do going forward, which is actually improve game thought, actually, you know, create tools that work better than the stuff we're borrowing from other mediums. Like, I don't want to use conventional sociology tools because they don't work. And I don't want to use film review tools because they don't work. You know, parts of them work, but they're not enough. We need, you know, a fourth dimension, which is interactivity. And, you know, I realized that all this stuff about collectives and movements and gender as class and race as class and all that stuff, they don't really apply to gaming as strongly as they do to the real world or other things, you know, Title IX type stuff and things like that, because video games are so embedded, based on the individual, on the player as individual, an individual experience, a customizable experience, right? And that's critical. Like, people would be going right now, yeah, big deal. You like my polka dot pajama pants, by the way? I like them. People like, yeah, big deal. No, it is a big deal. Because how do you watch a movie in a theater? You go and you sit there with a bunch of people. It's a collective experience. It's a group experience. And that's what movies were created to do. They weren't, like, TV comes into your home, so the group that is assumed to be viewing it is smaller. But that's why gaze theory became a thing with film and television, is because this whole idea you have a mixed audience in a film, the camera is forcing you to view something as, they would say, a man. It's a limited theory. It doesn't take in, you know, gays and lesbians. Can we just call gays and lesbians just gay, by the way? Like, why do we have to say gay and lesbian? It's the same concept. It's like, that's gendering. You know, yes, I understand that, but that's like lesbians can't say I'm gay. No, you're gay. You're not lesbian. Can men say I'm a lesbian? No. You know, let's just make it gay across the board. Like, fewer words. But I digress. The thing about games is, yes, it was an arcade, but it was still one person playing a character in a game. And yes, we have co-op and multiplayer and all that stuff, but you are still controlling a single item. That's why the game element, you as a player, is just as important as, like, you as protagonist. So we have this protagonist player, or this playable protagonist, that is different from other forms of media. And I think that really changes the way people interact with the products and what people take away from the products. It has to. I'm not a proponent of the medium as a message, but there's Momo hair all over the place. But there is an element when in video games the message is not nearly as defined as in film and TV, because it's experiential. And so, you know, developer can do things using film techniques to push a player in a particular direction. But there comes a point in time where the player needs to do some work for themselves to complete the level, or to find the unlockables, or to search out the story. One way or the other, it's up to the player to actually finish the process of telling that story. It's not like in a film, even if nobody watches it, the film is still a thing, right? It still exists. It's complete. A game's not complete until a player plays it. Because those little moments, like, oh, that awesome death, or, you know, that ending you picked, or the particular way you got through that level, none of that is determined until the player plays. And this becomes critical because characters are not just their gender. Characters are a lot of things. And I find myself often not choosing female characters, even though I'm female, and it's like, oh, you're a feminist, shouldn't you be playing female characters all the time? No. Because part of the reason I'm a feminist is nobody tells me what character I'm going to pick. And that includes other feminists. Because if you are actually a believer in women's rights and women's freedoms and women's equality, you recognize that this is a leisure activity. And if I am truly free, if I am truly equal, then I am free and equal to choose any damn character I want. Male, female, rich, poor, ugly, pretty. I happen to like monsters. And this is the thing, this idea that, feminism isn't about individual choice. Feminism is about women as class. It doesn't work in games. It doesn't work in games because gaming displaces the social order, right? You step into that role as a player, it shifts things. And I've talked about this again, when you're playing as Nathan Drake in Uncharted, am I a female there? It doesn't matter. My responses to the game, it may inform it, but for the purposes of me being able to control what he does, it doesn't matter that I'm male or female. It doesn't matter what the player is to the game in Mass Effect. It is the assumed gender the player picks for Shepard in Mass Effect that is truly significant to what the game does with that. And that's that performative gender concept I was talking about. And so, while I know where this idea of, individual choices could be making patriarchy work for you, and therefore it's not just about that, these criticisms of choice feminism, we're not talking about, getting women into CEO jobs and you're playing a video game. Now, the industry side of it, different story. I'm still not a big proponent of criticizing individual women for their individual choices. But, I see the point more there, even though I don't agree. With video games, it just isn't applicable. And it's important to recognize this because our primary analytical paradigm right now comes from people who believe in women as a class, not women as individuals. And why the hell does it have to be one or the other, right? Like, why can't a kid just like a Skylander and have it just be this? Well, because of social pressures and because all that. We know why. We know why some parents would be uncomfortable with a boy who always likes girl toys. Now, it could be this kid is, as somebody pointed out on Twitter, going into early puberty and wants to check the girl out. But there's nothing aberrant about that, I don't think. I don't think, you can look, but you can't touch. There's a difference in appreciating someone being attractive and a feeling that you're owed something because that person inspired that in you. And I think that distinction has been lost in a lot of the discussions as well. That attraction, we sort of need attraction to perpetuate the human race. We need babies, right? So we need men and women in some permutations, sometimes helped by science, or surrogates or whatever, to reproduce. We just need that to perpetuate the species. And so the actual attractive urge shouldn't be demonized. It's a question of what now? What does that mean? And we're not having that discussion because it's a constant fight, right? It's this consent. It's a video game. The consent is, do you agree to the terms of service? Yes, I consent. And that is a form of consent. You're agreeing in theory to not be a total dick about using this product. And that is a gendered term, I'm aware, but we're cool with that, right? And this is where I'm like, no, while I understand in theory where some of these terms come from, there's a time and place where women as a class, women as a social group, women as a voting group is not applicable to analysis. And I really think video games is one of them. And Skylanders made me realize about the primacy of the individual in video games. And this is something I'm going to work more on, because something tells me that this is really important. You know, the primacy of individual over group in games. And obviously there's certain things where this becomes iffy, right? I mean, MMOs with guilds and all that stuff, it becomes less cut and dried. I am talking the single player experience in video games. That's what I'm talking about. And I think there's something here. You know, I think there's something important here. And I think this is the core of why so many people reject so thoroughly this idea that, you know, the personal is political when it comes to games, because really in games it's flipped the other way around. The political is personal. All these factions and all these things and all this stuff, it's really just dance monkey dance for the player, isn't it? It's an inverted paradigm. Like, why do you care what the Grey Wardens and the Chantry and you know, the Dalish Elves and various things do in Dragon Age? Well, because it's fun, because that's your story that you're helping tell. So it actually is, there we go, there's the radical thought for the day, you know, the gamer life hack, if you will. The personal is not political in games. The political is personal. And if we don't recognize that, if we don't recognize there's something inherent to games, that the political is personal, then we get false positives and we get junk analysis and we get stuff that's really not useful in terms of talking to each other about games and talking to the mainstream about games. And so here's the too long didn't read for this, or too long didn't watch. 1. Individualism trumps group identity when it comes to the single-player experience in video games. And the personal is not political in games. The political is personal. Because gaming is... What did somebody say the other day? Films and TV tell stories. Games create an environment in which a story can be told. Hence, the personal is not political. The political is personal. Discuss in the comments, please. This is a way for you guys to have at it without telling me and everybody else you're idiots. Don't attack each other. Be respectful. Have fun. Be positive. Let's talk about this concept. Okay? Okay. Good job, everybody.